Present-day living is becoming more and more a race for time. No longer do housewives or husbands patiently spend hours carefully preparing delicious foods for their families. Instead, the cookbook has given over to McDonald's, microwaves, and the local pizza parlors. No longer do people have enough time to read good books. Instead, they hurriedly scan through book digests. Life no longer is timed by the grandfather clock, but is paced by the digital readout of a Seiko watch. It is inevitable, therefore, that music too will someday be caught up in this race for time. And so it is our theory that in the not-too-distant future, concert-goers will simply not have an occasional hour or two to spend in the musical program, but will have to content themselves instead with a condensed, pre-shrunk efficiency expert version. We would like, therefore, to present to you now a concert of the future, based along traditional principles of programming, but with all wasted motion eliminated, all excess fat removed, and streamlined to the 10th power. In short, a concert digest. Many bands prefer to begin a concert with a slow, quiet chorale. This warms up the band and settles down the audience. Our concert digest follows this tradition. Since, however, the chorale is usually considered by performers and audience alike to be rather unimportant part of the program, we will begin by saving a minute or two with a rather abbreviated version. And so, with this explanation of what is to follow, we are ready to begin our countdown for a time-saving concert of the future. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're off. Most bands like to perform a stirring march at the beginning of the program. Now, traditionally, marches are composed according to rather rigid rules of style and form. After several measures of introduction, a march usually contains two contrasting strains of 32 measures each, followed by a trio in a different key featuring low woodwinds and baritones playing very softly for 32 measures. Then comes 16 measures of pandemonium known as the dogfight or break strain. The march is concluded with a repetition of the first 32 measures of the trio, played very loudly with additional ornamentation featured by the high woodwinds. In this form, a march consists of at least 150 measures, even though performed at a brisk tempo, consumes a minimum of at least 3 or 4 valuable minutes. We present instead a march of the future, which, while forming the basic rules of traditional form, has been abridged to a mere 38 measures. Having a time-thrifty duration of only 31 seconds, here then is march brevity. In the interest of saving time, we would like to ask that the audience limit applause for the remaining selections of our concert to only 3 hand claps for any one number. Thank you. Now comes the logical place for the heaviest number of the program. Ideally, some symphonic work by one of the masters. We have chosen Schubert's Unfinished Symphony. Knows with certainty that what we just played is from Schubert's Unfinished Symphony, for the very simple reason that no other composition in the world sounds like Schubert's Unfinished Symphony. So by stopping here, before anyone in the audience has a chance to drop off to sleep, we save the listeners a good 47 minutes of listening time, and also save the band no telling how many hours of rehearsal time. The next spot on a well-planned program is usually reserved for a featured soloist. There are, of course, numerous types of compositions designed to show off the technique of the brilliant instrumentalist. We have chosen one of the most commonly used musical forms in this category, known as theme and variations. This type of composition opens with an introduction by the full band, after which the theme is stated by the soloist. This theme is usually very simple, well-known melody, introduced in the simple, straightforward manner by the soloist. As the composition progresses, this simple theme is then elaborated upon, extended during the course of the variations which follow. Each successive variation, of course, becomes increasingly more brilliant and more difficult. After several variations, the soloist is usually given a cadenza, which is played unaccompanied in order to best display his or her virtuosity. The cadenza then leads into the finale, which is the longest and most difficult of the variations. The piece usually ends with a coda, which is an elaborate, extended ending. Before presenting our next number in its entirety, we would like to have our soloist first play the simple, well-known theme upon which this composition is based. We do this in order that you might better recognize this theme as the music becomes increasingly more involved and intimate. Here is the theme. We ask that you keep in mind that our primary objective is time-saving as we present our featured soloist, Darla Willis, playing theme and variations. That, of course, was the introduction and theme. Now, here's the first variation. Next, variation number 2. And now variation number 3, which leads directly into the soloist's unaccompanied cadenza. Now, after the cadenza, we're ready for the brilliant finale and the extended ending called the coda. At this point in the program, the band usually takes an intermission. This is a 10-minute period of time which always lasts well over 20 minutes, during which time toes are trampled on and ladies' hats get knocked cockeyed as fathers rush out to grab a smoke, mothers to powder their noses, and the kids to spill soft drinks on their heretofore spotless fronts. It is also a time during which the instruments of the band, being left alone as the players take a break, manage somehow to completely untune themselves. And so, in the interest of efficiency, we are cutting our intermission to 15 seconds. If you wish, you may join us as we relax. The second half of a formal concert is often begun with a modern work. Modern music is usually described as being atonal, polyphonic, contrapuntal studies in sound. This simply means that it's every man for himself. And if you hear a pleasant sound, you know that somebody's goofed. Modern works are usually quite lengthy, but in the selection we are about to present, lends itself quite well to our aim for brevity because its composer has been able to achieve complete monotony in just a few short minutes. We present to you now a modern work entitled simply Modern Music for Flute, Clarinet, Trumpet, Saxophone, Trombone, Euphonium, Tuba, Triangle, Cymbal, Snare, Drum, and Hot Water Bottle. We have chosen a swing arrangement of the old favorite shortening bread. Ours is a standard recipe, except that we use a lot more shortening. This type of number is obviously much too time-consuming for an abbreviated program such as ours. There is another type of novelty which depends upon the use of funny sounds to create humorous effect. Sometimes these funny sounds are produced by the instruments themselves, like this. In this type of novelty, the band usually plays a rather unfunny music, while the drummers punctuate the composition from time to time with unlikely sounds which, for one reason or another, the audience seems to regard as hilarious or smile-provoking, to say the least. We feel that there is a great deal of wasted time in such a number, and we think that we have the solution to this problem. Since it is the unusual sounds made by the percussionists which are the essence of this type of novelty, a great deal of time can be saved by keeping the band's participation to an absolute minimum. Here then is our idea of a digest version of a band novelty of the future. Although it is a type of composition which traditionally should be placed early in the program, we have saved it for the last for a special reason. We would like to demonstrate how this trend of musical condensation might affect the band arrangers. Many of the old standard numbers, or war horses, as they are called by musicians, will have to be rewritten to conform to the demand for brevity. Some arrangers will have to cope with this problem, some will fail. We would like to play for you the results of the efforts of one arranger who couldn't quite make the grade. This particular writer very capably managed to condense the old standards. In fact, as you will hear, he was even able to combine a number of compositions into one overture. He failed, alas, because of one fatal shortcoming. You see, he just could not force himself to shorten the old traditional classic endings. We think you'll understand what we mean as we conclude our concert digest with the War Horse Overture.
Thank you.